The New York Giants might have lost their game against the Buffalo Bills, but there were some encouraging things to come from that game that they can take moving forward. We'll go over what they are coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. You can follow me on Twitter at Patricia_Traina. Or X, whatever it's being called these days. And the Locked On Giants podcast, of course, is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And on today's program, what changed for the New York Giants? Now, the results of their game against the Buffalo Bills, it's still a loss. And a loss is a loss, just like a win is a win. But there were some positives to come out of that game, some changes that we saw that give us kind of a little bit of more hope that moving forward, some of these Giant games that remain will be a little bit more competitive. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to touch upon a topic that it came up today when Brian Daboll was speaking to the media. I don't know why it came up, but I guess it was a valid question. And that is, do the Giants have a quarterback controversy? I'm going to weigh in on that and give you some stats and some information, what I know about that situation. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with a look at, are the Giants out of the woods? You know, the beginning part of their schedule was just absolutely brutal. The tough part is supposedly over, or is it? So we're going to take a look at that as well. And that's our agenda for today's Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you, as always, for joining us. So let's jump right in. What changed for the New York Giants? Now, before I get into the changes, again, a loss is a loss. I get that. And obviously what changed wasn't enough to get the Giants back over the hump. But that being said, against the Buffalo Bills, who had their share of struggles too, the Giants were a lot more competitive, probably as competitive as we have seen them play all season long. And quite honestly, after the way the season has started off, you knew changes were going to have to be made. Now, some of the changes obviously were brought about by injury. Some of them were just philosophical changes. We're going to go over them. And I'm going to start off with the obvious one, and that is the return of Saquon Barkley. Now, anybody who thinks that Saquon Barkley is a tradable piece, is somebody that this team doesn't need, I would refer you back to this game, because when Saquon is in the lineup, he makes a difference, folks. He gives this team a potential home run threat that they don't really have with Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, and Eric Gray. He also creates a situation now where the defense has to account for him. So when you have the defense needing to account for him and needing to account for a quarterback that can potentially scramble and hurt you with his legs, that's just an added bonus if you're the Giants. So Saquon came in, wasn't 100%. You could see that he wasn't 100%, but he did rip off a few long runs towards the end of the game, looked to be getting more into a groove. And look, I was really happy to see that the Giants fed him the ball. You know, I thought initially he might be on a pitch count. That wasn't the case. They fed him the ball and they were able to move the ball, you know. So having Saquon in the lineup, definitely, to me, a big change and a change for the good. Now, hopefully Saquon comes out of this game without any, setbacks where he's going to be limited again. Although I think he might be limited in practice, in the upcoming week. But hopefully no setbacks for him. Another change, and this was injury related, obviously. the presence of Justin Pugh in the offensive line. Now, you go back and you look at the Giants' offensive line, and it's been a mess. I don't have to tell you that. We've all seen that. But what's made it even worse is the number of young guys that they've had to bring into this offensive line, the number of inexperienced guys who are learning on the fly. And I've mentioned this before, that I did not like how the Giants kept rotating guys and trying guys at different positions. And oh, by the way, now Joshua Zudu moves in at left tackle 10 days before the start of the season when he didn't practice it all spring or summer. Or Mark Lewinsky's got to go from right guard to left guard. Or, Marcus McCaffin, who missed off his rookie season and most of summer training camp, has got to go in at right guard. There was a lot of, panic and scramble with that offensive line. And Justin Pugh, his presence settled that line down. Now, some of you will probably argue and say, well, how can one player do that? When you have an experienced veteran in the huddle with you who can, bring a sense of calm and be able to go on the sideline with you and coach up, which is stuff that Pugh can do, it does make a difference. And I really believe that Justin Pugh, in his first game back from, the ACL tear that he had last year with the Cardinals, made a big difference for that offensive line. I'd like to see them plug him in somewhere as a starter. Now he's, as I record this, he reverted back to the practice squad. But if he's healthy enough to keep going, I'd like to see him added to the 53-man roster. And I'd like to see him in the starting lineup, whether it be a guard, although I think, with Joshua Zudu now dealing with a turf toe injury, I suspect Pugh is going to have to kick out to left tackle, which is, really not his best spot right now. But if anybody can, master that position in a hurry, it's Justin Pugh. He's definitely settled down that offensive line. Another thing that changed is on the sticking on the offense. The wide receiver rotation was streamlined. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I went back and I looked at the number of pass targets the Giants had in each of their 6 games and how many of them were receivers. And then also the passing yardage. So let me just give you some numbers here. Week 1, the Giants had 11 targets, 5 of whom were receivers. Week 2, 7 targets, 5 of whom were receivers. Week 3, 8 targets, 4 of whom were receivers. Week 4, 11 targets, 6 of whom were receivers. Week 5, 9 targets, 5 of whom were receivers. And week 6, 6 targets, 3 of whom were receivers. Now, what's the significance here? I have said and believed all along that, the Giants have all these different receivers, mix and match, because they want to go more 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. They want to stretch the field. They want to be able to do all this cool stuff on offense. But the drawback to what they were trying to do, besides the fact that the offensive line has been a disaster, is it didn't really allow for the quarterback to get comfortable with a set, core group of receivers. So, you look at Daniel Jones in the past, he showed comfort with Darius Slayton. He's shown comfort with Sterling Shepard. He's shown comfort with Isaiah Hodgins. So now when you have him throwing to multiple receivers and they can't get into that groove, so to speak, we're really not helping the offense. So this week, whether it be by design or whatever, only 3 receivers got pass targets. They were Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt. Those are the 3, in all honesty, that should be getting the pass targets. They're the young guys. They are they represent, the future, if you will. Those are the guys you want to develop. You want to get them experience, because when you spread this out and you're throwing to Paris Campbell or Sterling Shepard, you're really not doing these young guys any favor. You want to develop them. So I was happy to see that they streamlined that a little bit. And oh, by the way, the Giants passed for 185 yards, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it was their second highest total passing yardage, net passing yardage, since week 2 when they had 312 yards. All right. So, yes, you want to have 5 receivers on your roster, minimum of 5 receivers. But when you're throwing to multiple guys like that, are you really doing the offense any favors? You're not really letting the quarterback get into a groove, So to me, I was glad to see that. I think that was a big change that kind of went, unnoticed by a lot of people, but I thought was worth mentioning. All right, one more thing I'll talk about, and this is on defense. Wink Martindale, the last couple of weeks, has reduced his blitzing. Now, let me give you some numbers there. All right, these are according to Sports Information Solutions. Wink Martindale in weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 blitzed at least 36% of the time. All right. Week number 5, that number dropped to 9%. And against the Bills, 28.1%. So that little change, what did that allow the Giants to do? It allowed them to put an extra guy back in coverage, which helped with, slowing down Stephon Diggs this week, and also really didn't cost them as far as any deep passing plays against the Bills. And it just, by making a tweak up front to where, they had Leonard Williams taking some of those outside edge reps because Azeez Ojulari isn't there. They were able to get home with a 4-man rush. So they've been putting more of an emphasis on getting pressure with a 4-man rush. And oh, by the way, this past week, Wink did something else that I really liked. And that is he put Dexter Lawrence right over center Mitch Morse's nose. So a bigger Dexter Lawrence against a smaller and lighter Mitch Morse. Good move, Wink. Because Dexter Lawrence, if you saw the game, you saw Dexter was pushing the pocket. And the Giants might not have had, tons of sacks or tons of pressure, but they were making Josh Allen, somewhat uncomfortable in that pocket. So that was definitely a change that I saw and I liked from the Giants. All right, now coming up next, is there a quarterback controversy brewing? I don't think there is, but we'll talk about it nonetheless. So don't go anywhere. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life can sometimes drag us down, leaving us with more questions than answers. Life-changing decisions and events can challenge our coping skills and call our confidence in making decisions into question. BetterHelp can provide you with the guidance you need to become empowered in your decision-making process. BetterHelp is entirely online and is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you find that your assigned therapist turns out not to be a match, you can switch at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Hey, Giant fans. So between my work here on the Locked On Giants podcast over on Giants Country and being on site at East Rutherford to bring you all the latest and greatest Giants coverage, I just don't have time some days to get to the grocery store to make sure that my fridge is full. Luckily, I don't have to, thanks to DoorDash. With DoorDash, I get everything I want when I need it, delivered straight to my door. For years, I've trusted DoorDash to also deliver freshly made meals from my favorite restaurants, and they've never let me down. And now they've added grocery delivery to their offering. It's made my life so much easier. DoorDash has thousands of grocery stores to choose from, so you'll find one in your neighborhood that's right for you. You'll get what you ordered, or they will make it right. And you can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a no delivery fee on eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. Now, for a limited time, you can get 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to $20 off when you use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Again, that's 50% off, up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at sign up. Terms apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Traynor, your host. And in this segment, do the Giants have a quarterback controversy? Now, let's be clear. I don't think they do. The question did come up today, however, when the head coach Brian Daboll spoke to the media, because I guess the opinion of the writer who asked it, and I was not the writer who asked the question, but perhaps in that person's opinion, Tyrod Taylor moved the offense a little bit more efficiently. And, it's kind of interesting because Mark Collins, who used to be a defensive back for the Giants back in the day, the 1980s, early 1990s, Mark Collins actually put something out on his Twitter account in which he said, and I quote, "I'm going to throw this out there. Taylor runs the Giants offense better than Jones. Same O-line situation. There may be a quarterback battle at Giants. Like how Giants shortened the game, gives defense time to rest. Best half other than Arizona this year." All right, that coming from former New York Giant defensive back Mark Collins. Now, I do not think the Giants have a quarterback controversy. I think, and Brian Daboll, he was asked this and he basically was like, no. All right. After one game, and yes, the Buffalo Bills are a step up in competition, obviously. And Taylor, you can make the argument that they played well enough to win, but I still go back to not being able to punch it in and execute when you needed 1 yard 2 times and you weren't able to get it. And the first time you're calling for a play that just had no chance of working and just represented bad clock management. But let me give you some numbers here compared to Tyrod Taylor to Daniel Jones. And again, the caveat is Taylor has played one game. And based on one game, I don't think that's enough to spark any kind of quarterback controversy. But let me give you some numbers for what it's worth. All right. I looked at the average time to throw for both quarterbacks. Daniel Jones averaging 2.72 seconds. Tyrod Taylor, 2.54 seconds. And I've mentioned before on the program that ideally you want your quarterback getting rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds or less. So Taylor a little bit closer in that regard. Yards per pass attempt. Daniel Jones, 9.9. Tyrod Taylor, 11.6. So Taylor may be thrown a little bit deeper than Jones, whether that be because of the game plan or because he's seen the field a little bit better than Jones is. Okay, in terms of deep passes, which is where the Giants ultimately want to go with their passing game, Jones and Taylor both have 2 deep pass completions. Taylor having it in the 1 game and Jones, of course, in the 5 games. So, some of the stats would seem to indicate that Taylor was better. But again, folks, you can't go off of just 1 game. Now, could there be a scenario where maybe the coaching staff thinks, all right, you know what? Maybe Daniel isn't our guy moving forward. Maybe, if we get into a position to draft the top quarterback next April, we go in that direction. And then maybe we either let Daniel pave the way or we look to trade him. That could be. That definitely could be. But right now, I mean, if Daniel Jones is healthy, and I don't know, as I record this, I don't know what his status is. We won't know until Wednesday. He's going to be the quarterback. And to say, is there a controversy? I just think it's too premature to go down that path after just 1 game by Tyrod Taylor. Now, if we have a larger sample size and Taylor starts to play better than Jones has, then maybe. But, I also mentioned the other factors in the previous segment, the reduction of receivers. Instead of throwing to 5 receivers, you throw in to 3. I mentioned, the settling of the offensive line. So if you really want to compare apples to apples, you want to see Daniel Jones operate under the same circumstances before you say for sure that Tyrod Taylor is a better option. So either way, folks, I'm not sure that Jones or Taylor right now are the long-term option. I need to see more. I need to see Daniel Jones, if he does come back from that neck injury, I need to see him look like the Daniel Jones that we saw last year. So quarterback, it's cloudy again. I'm not going to lie, but I'm not going to quite go out on a limb and agree that there is a quarterback controversy. Dable denied it, but then again, what's he going to do? Is he going to admit it, even if he was thinking, okay, you know what, I'm going to go with Tyrod the rest of the way, regardless of Daniel? No, he's not going to do that. He's not going to admit that. So we'll have to see where Daniel is in his rehab, if he's back on the field, if he's able to finish out the season. I know a lot of you have come to me and you said, Daniel's done for the year. He might be, he might not be. I know that he spoke to Melissa Stark at NBC Sports in their production meeting, and he revealed a little bit more about the neck injury that he's dealing with, how it's in his left shoulder, and supposedly it's going down his arm, which could be a pinched nerve. It could be a stinger. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to diagnose Daniel Jones, but I will say this, hopefully his injury does heal up, because look, he deserves a chance to go back out there and try to erase some of the, stale football that we've seen, which not all his fault. I want to make that clear, because some of you seem to think that I think Daniel Jones is to blame for everything. No, I don't think that. But I need to see better from him. I need to see better decision-making. I need to see quicker decision-making. And of course, just being able to move the offense, because Taylor did it with, a banged up offensive line. I want to see Jones do it. So we'll have to see if and when he comes back, if he can pull that off. All right, coming up next, are the Giants out of the woods as far as the tough part of their schedule? I have some thoughts about that, so don't go anywhere. We'll talk about that right after this. Hey, Giant fans, if you want to secure tickets to your favorite concerts, shows, and sporting events without the stress, you need to check out Game Time, the fast and easy way to buy tickets right up until the day of the event. With amazing deals on last-minute tickets and their best prices guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to have. With Game Time, you not only get the lowest prices guaranteed, you also get a clear image of where your seats are within the venue, so you can see exactly what the stage is going to look like. They also offer event cancellation protection. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So go ahead and snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. Hey, Giant fans, check out the Locked On Giants Insiders Club, where you can get exclusive content delivered directly to your phone. Currently, we're doing a Q&A every week with our participants. We're also doing the new stats with Stack Pat, and everybody gets a free subscription to Inside Football, which breaks down every single Giant player's performance from the previous game. Plus, you can engage in one-on-one conversations with me via text. I'm really excited to be able to offer this, be a part of this community of the Locked On Giants Insiders, and I know that you'll like what we have to offer. So what are you waiting for? Check out the Locked On Giants Insiders Club now and be in the know all the time. To try it out for free for 14 days, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants, where you can also get more information, or again, to start your free 14-day trial. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And coming up this week, I'm working on an interview. I'm waiting to hear back regarding an interview that I'm trying to set up. I'm hoping to have Locked On Giants live later in the week with Dog and Tana. Last week, Tana wasn't able to join us, but Dog and I held down the fort and we did Locked On Giants live for you. Crossover Thursday will be this week. David Harrison of Locked On Commanders will join me and we'll break down the Giants Commanders game on Sunday. So lots coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And again, thank you so much for tuning in and making us part of your day. It is appreciated. And, speaking of the Commanders, are the Giants now out of the woods as far as their schedule goes? You look back and the Giants, the start of their schedule was just brutal. 4 primetime games in 6 weeks. The short week, from Arizona to San Francisco. Just an absolute brutal schedule. You look at the teams that the Giants have coming up on their schedule between now and their bye week in week 13. They have Washington twice, the Jets, the Raiders, Dallas, New England. And you look at what each of those teams are doing, okay? So you've got Washington, who is currently 3-3. The Jets are 3-3, coming off a huge win, by the way, on Sunday against the Eagles, who, are just seem impossible to beat these days. The Raiders have been struggling. They're 3-3. I think they lost their quarterback, Jimmy G, to an injury. So we'll see where they're at in a couple weeks when the Giants play them. The Cowboys, as I record this, they are playing against the Chargers of Monday Night Football. So they entered that game 3-2. New England is really the only team with a poor record, a 1-5 record. So if you prescribe to the fact, to a team's record, the Giants might not be out of the woods just yet because their opponents are getting better. Whereas the Giants, they made some progress against the Bills, but still, again, a loss is a loss. So I don't know, folks. I don't know if I would say the Giants are out of the woods just yet. It would help if they get Andrew Thomas back because they have been missing him big time. And I believe this week they're going to try and ramp him up again. I think, after him not being able to practice, they're going to try and ramp him up again. And I think the target return date for him is in 2 weeks, actually, against the Jets. I think that's what they're looking at or hoping for at any rate. They've got to get some of these offensive linemen back, get John Michael Schmitz back. I don't know exactly what the plan is for him, but get some of these guys back on the field. If Daniel Jones can come back, now you've got Saquon Barkley, who has proven he can make it through. So just get the team that you thought you were going to have when you entered the season back on the field and just see if that team can come together. I think one of the big issues with this Giants team, it's interesting because somebody had asked me in a letter to the editor, how did we get this so wrong with the Giants, especially given all the optimism we had. Well, we didn't anticipate all these injuries affecting the lineup seemingly every week. So I would have liked to have seen what the Giants would have done if they had been able to keep the same lineup for like 3-4 weeks, following that disaster against Dallas, which I felt they just weren't ready. And that's not because the lineup was bad. I felt that they weren't ready because they didn't get enough work in the preseason. So you never know how things would have turned out, obviously. But back to my point about, are the Giants out of the woodwork? I don't think they are. I just don't. I mean, at the start of the season, I think I would have said, oh, they'll beat Washington at home. I'm not confident in that right now as I record this. I might change my mind as I go through, my investigation into Washington. I haven't really studied it yet because I wrapped up the Buffalo game, but, maybe I'll change my mind on that. I don't know that they beat the Jets. Okay, so I could see the Giants easily being 1-7 by the trade deadline that's coming up in 2 weeks on October 31st. Maybe they'll be 2-6. I don't know. But the point is there's going to be some decisions that need to be made. And I just don't think that, suddenly they're going to get that better to where they go on some kind of a run. I hope they do, because obviously it's good for business all around, but I need to see it. And, while I was encouraged by what I saw against Buffalo, I need to see that on a consistent basis before I sit there and say, okay, yep, they're out of the woods for sure. And better days are ahead. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for me on today's Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Be sure to keep it here tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. We'll have plenty more on your New York Giants here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Have a good one, everybody.